You know, late last year, an 11Alive news investigation exposed unusually high rates of thyroid cancer in northeast Georgia. So these neighboring counties, these six right here you see on your screen, have had the highest rates of thyroid cancer in the state for nearly 2 decades. Investigative reporter Savannah Levins joins us now to break down some of the details from her reporting and the information you need to know for Inside 11Alive News Investigates. Savannah?
Yeah, that's right, Ron. We brought this data to doctors, epidemiologists, public health experts, and all of them called the high rates of thyroid cancer in these 6 neighboring counties unusual and worth investigating, leading the University of North Georgia now to initiate research efforts.
Whee! 2 years ago, mom of 3, Victoria Hurtado, was diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
I love you. First, I felt denial, like this can't be real. I'm 30 years old. There's no way I have thyroid cancer. Then the acceptance, then the grief, then the anger, sadness. Come on, jump.
Even after major surgery, the cancer spread. Her doctor unable to provide all the answers.
I asked the doctor, I said, so what causes this? He said, I honestly have no idea.
11Alive News Investigates spoke to dozens of residents in northeast Georgia, men, women, even children, all facing the same diagnosis and questions. The often overlooked symptoms include a lump in the neck, voice changes, trouble swallowing, fatigue, and sudden weight fluctuation.
There's so many cases popping up, so it definitely makes me think that it's affecting us all. So whatever it is that is causing this is a very strong factor.
So we analyzed CDC cancer data. Around 2006, high thyroid cancer rates began to emerge in northeast Georgia. Incidence rates have been unusually high in this area ever since. Union, Lumpkin, Hall, White, Habersham, and Rabun, 6 neighboring counties, have the highest rates of thyroid cancer in the state, all about double the national average or more over the past decade.
We're noticing that there's a lot of these patients with thyroid cancer.
When we brought these numbers to Northeast Georgia Medical Center, it responded quickly. Endocrine surgeon Dr. Nikita Machado saying the data validates recent fears she and her colleagues have shared.
Our incidence of young patients with thyroid cancer is surprisingly higher than it should be. It's definitely above the national average.
We also brought the data to researchers at University of North Georgia. Dr. Neil Lin, an expert in public health and epidemiology.
The numbers and the comparison to the state and national averages, it is striking, not just high, but it's certainly exceptionally high.
The big question is why?
It may be something that is something related to the infrastructure here.
Doctors Lin and Machado both say finding answers will be dependent on public health officials getting involved.
I think it's important to parse out, is there something here that's preventable? What we need is a partner in the community, and that usually boils down to the Department of Public Health and then epidemiologists.
Georgia DPH reviewed our findings, saying it's not currently allocating any special resources to investigate, but will continue to monitor cancer rates overall.
You're doing really important work here. I think raising awareness about thyroid cancer, really cancers in general, and sort of what to expect and how to not really screen for it, but how to look for it, is going to help us to catch these earlier.
Dr. Lin confirming UNG has started researching efforts to investigate potential causes, acknowledging without widespread support, it may be a long road.
They need to put in the time and investigate and figure this out. The hurdle is to get the funding.
Man, that is really, really scary. You can see why a lot of these families, they're looking for answers, especially if they live in that part of Georgia. So we know that thyroid cancer doesn't discriminate, but is there a certain demographic, an age, a race, any of that?
That's usually impacted by thyroid cancer.
Right.
I mean, that's a very good question. And usually it's women over 40. But in this 6-county area of North Georgia, I mean, they're seeing cases of all ages and all genders. And while medical experts don't know exactly what causes it, there are some risk factors that we want you to know about. So here's what Dr. Machado said about that.
Thyroid cancer is more common in women than it is in men, especially in the younger age group, say 30s to 40s. There's almost a 3-to-1 disparity in women having thyroid cancer versus men having thyroid cancer. As far as risk factors for it, I think the one big thing that we know is ionizing radiation. And that word gets thrown around a lot, so it's a little confusing for patients. I'm not talking about one-off CAT scans or MRIs or x-rays. We're talking about therapeutic radiation that people may have had, let's say if they had lymphoma when they were younger, or tumors in their chest. And then that radiation puts them at a higher risk for thyroid cancer. And oftentimes it lags. So if you have radiation, it's not like you'll have cancer within a couple of years. It can lag 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. And so it's important to know that and to let your doctors know that so that they can survey it in the future. The other thing I think to talk about is family histories. Most thyroid cancer is sporadic, meaning you will have it without anybody else in your family ever having had thyroid cancer.
So again, as she said there, we know exposure to ionizing radiation is a risk factor, and it's not usually genetic, but overall there's just a lot we don't know. According to the American Cancer Society, it can be just really hard to pinpoint a cause because, I mean, experts say there's just no way radiation exposure can be the sole cause of thyroid cancer for every single person who has it, Ron, which is why research is so important.
And this is really strange that everything is compacted within those 6 counties in northeast Georgia. I know you've been speaking with a lot of experts out there. What are they telling you?
Well, it is weird, right? When you look at the map and you see all the highest cases are in that clustered area. Well, Dr. Machado and Dr. Lin with UNG both say the obvious hypothesis would be that it's something environmental and something unique to that area. So here's what they had to say about that.
There is talk about certain chemical substances, potentially, exposure to some hard metals like arsenic and things like that. That could potentially play a role, but again, it's not a one-to-one relation as far as we know.
What warrants more funding into this is if these thyroid cancers that are occurring in people that usually don't get thyroid cancer, so for example, like children, men usually don't get cancers, or even just kind of the younger population, that is worth finding out, because then it may be something that is environmental. It may be something that is something related to the infrastructure here, and we want to know that so that we certainly pass it on to other parts of the city as they're growing and developing, and making sure that they're not using this material or that material and things like that.
For us here in Hall County, and then further up in like Habersham County and Union, we're noticing that there's a lot of these patients with thyroid cancer. And knowing what we just talked about, that there's this interplay between genetics, environmental factors, and things like that, I think it's important to parse out, is there something here that's preventable or treatable, or is it just that we need to increase awareness in the community so that people know that patients are at a higher risk of cancer, and so we're doing more frequent exams or coming into their doctors, we're getting ultrasounds as needed, things like that.
Now, since our investigation first aired, dozens of people who live in that 6-county area have reached out. In fact, as of today, I think that number's 56 viewers who've reached out to us saying they also have thyroid cancer. Men, women, children as young as 13. And we've actually started mapping their homes, Ron, and their frequently visited locations to see if there's any commonalities.
So this is happening in Georgia. So the obvious question, Georgia health officials, are they stepping in? Are they even investigating?
That's a very good question. So as of recently, the short answer is no. Right now, the State Department of Health is aware of what we found. A spokesperson told 11Alive News Investigates that DPH is going to monitor it, but ultimately said the agency, along with the Department of Natural Resources, decided together not to launch a study. Now, the reasoning is they say there's no known source of radiation in that area, which is, they say, the only known environmental cause of thyroid cancer. But that doesn't mean that others haven't taken notice of our investigation's findings. Here's a sneak peek at what some lawmakers had to say when they saw our original investigation.
It's something that needs to be looked at and now and soon. We don't want to turn a blind eye to it or pretend like it's not happening. We can't do that. DPH, in their defense, does not call this a cluster because of the large area, but it is twice as prevalent than the national number, so obviously we do have something going on here. So, we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to look at all the factors.
Now, we talked about what those plans might be, and all of that will be featured in our new investigation you'll be able to find right here on 11Alive Plus starting on March 3rd. But overall, there's only so much that university or independent level researchers can do with limited budgets. These legislators say they're willing to advocate for funds, but we'll see what happens. And the families we spoke with that have been impacted, as you said, Ron, they just want answers.
We love this area. So yeah, I'm definitely concerned for my daughters and what their futures are going to look like if they're going to have to battle the same diagnosis I have. It concerns me because whatever it is that is causing it, I mean, our bodies are the healthiest in our 20s and 30s. My doctor even said that because 25 lymph nodes were infected. He said, I would not be surprised, Victoria, if you've had this thyroid cancer for 10 years, it's been growing. So that would have put me at my early 20s. Okay, in your 20s, you are supposed to be in perfect health. So whatever it is that is causing this is a very strong factor. So that is very concerning to me that people our age are getting it. And it's definitely something that needs to be researched and looked into.
So when I look at the images and just the treatment that those folks are going through, it's got to be painstaking. It's got to be very emotional for them and their families as well. So Savannah, to wrap things up here, you've given a lot of useful information, but what about the symptoms of thyroid cancer? What should they look out for?
Yeah, and to your point, Ron, I mean, the treatment is really difficult. A lot of times they have to take these like radiation pills and be quarantined from their family. It's really hard. So knowing the symptoms is really important. Dr. Machado says it's important for people, especially up in this area, to keep a very close eye on their health. Here's what she says everyone needs to know.
For patients that have thyroid issues, they may notice very small changes that kind of catch up over time. They may feel like they are either intolerant to heat or cold. They may feel like they're suddenly losing or gaining weight without trying. They may notice sleep abnormalities. They may notice heart rate changes where it's either racing or slower than it should be. And for women especially, they may notice changes in their menstrual cycles that, again, don't really have an explanation for, based on other reasons.
That's interesting. Like, as you're talking, so I have PCOS, and like a lot of the symptoms are the same, and even some of those symptoms sound like anxiety, sound like just a bad day. Like, is that part of the difficulty too, where a lot of those symptoms aren't very obvious?
Welcome to the frustrating world of endocrine medicine. So a lot of these systems align with each other, and there's a lot of things that overlap. So I think it's important, if you're having any of these symptoms, to get them checked with your primary care physician so you can sort of narrow down where this might be coming from.
How might someone test for this?
In general, I'd say making sure you meet with your primary care physician once a year, getting your thyroid function checked, which is a basic set of labs, including something called TSH. It's a good starting marker of where your thyroid function is at.
So much good information for families out there. So Savannah, we really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing, the team is doing right now for the Inside 11Alive News Investigators. By the way, folks, we just want to remind everyone that if you have a concern in your community that you want Savannah or maybe the 11Alive News Investigates team to look into, you can always reach them by calling 404-873-9111 or emailing investigates@11alive.com.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time right here on 11Alive News Investigates.